Hello, this is Laurie Boone, Heritage Branch Librarian. The flood of 1916, the year the Yuma levee broke. January 19, 1916, the Tucson Citizen paper reported that there was some apprehension that Main Street in Yuma might be flooded, as the old government levee was believed to be weakening. Trainloads of rock were being used by reclamation officials to strengthen the levee. People gathered on the railroad bridge, anxiously watching as the floodwaters rose higher and higher. As Tom Patterson remembered from when he was 6 years old, standing above the river, the water was muddy, and very wild. It rolled and roiled in huge waves. It had broken through levees and was running down the streets and into the stores of what's now called Old Yuma. I watched in terror as a train crept from the station and onto the bridge. Why didn't it hurry? The bridge might fall into the torrent at any minute. Many went to bed the night of January 21, 1916, believing the Gila and Colorado rivers had finally crested. Then, about 5 a.m. the next morning, Saturday, January 22nd, fear spread throughout Yuma. The river levee had broken. The news was grim. The Yuma Examiner's Flood Edition reported that Yuma is struggling between life and death against the most disastrous flood ever known. Early this morning, about 5 o'clock, the government levee just above the city gave way, caused in part by undermining by gophers. All of Yuma wakened in the early morning hours, if any had slept at all, to know the worst. By 8 o'clock in the morning, the water was over 4 feet deep on Main Street. The power plant was out of commission at about 7:30 a.m., being entirely surrounded by water. People took refuge on sandhills, but so did scorpions and snakes. Everybody was busy moving everything that they could carry away. Rowboats were the only practical mode of transportation. The next few hours were water-soaked misery. Adobe buildings and houses just melted as soon as the water soaked their base. The waters had coursed down Gila Street. More water filled Main Street. It filled basement after basement in the business district. Countless homes were lost. Families took their livestock with them to higher ground, where they had to camp outside until relief came. Since there were no newspapers published in Yuma, news of the flood came from other Arizona papers. The Arizona Silver Belt reported on January 22nd that Yuma is flooded and that Yuma Mayor Charles Moore has died of heart failure caused by excitement while trying to restore order. The residents are panic-stricken and water is rushing high through the main street. A committee has been appointed to keep order and prevent looting. Immediately upon the announcement of the death of Mayor Charles Moore, Sheriff Greenleaf called on Acting Captain Sampson and asked him to take the policing of the city in hand with his trusted men of Company D, 12th Infantry, who happened to have been in the area earlier to counter possible attacks by Pancho Villa. Some children found an opportunity to play a little by sailing the empty caskets that had floated out of the flooded undertaker and funeral home. Yuma residents had moved immediately to organize a relief committee with headquarters at the Yuma Reading and Restroom on Madison Avenue, one of the few structures to escape the flood unscathed. Free coffee and bread were supplied to the hungry and destitute at relief headquarters. Finally, the water slowly receded and Yuma began the murky task of clearing up. The aftermath was an ugly sight. Damage was estimated at $350,000, nearly $9 million today. A Maxwell automobile was busy for weeks after the flood. It worked hundreds of hours pumping out basements along Main Street. It was jacked up and a belt ran from one rear wheel to a centrifugal pump. This car worked weeks in this manner. Then came a period of reconstructing downtown Yuma. The city of Yuma created an ordinance that no more adobe buildings could be built in flood zones, and building inspectors were ordered to make sure none of the condemned buildings were even repaired. The United States Senate was quick to make emergency funds available to repair the government levee that was destroyed. Levees were rebuilt, and Yuma would now grow by leaps and bounds. The people of Yuma pulled together and with grit and determination rebuilt their homes and businesses, while more work on the dams and levees protected Yuma in the future from any more catastrophic flooding. Learn more about the early floods that plagued Yuma at the Yuma County Library.